Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's good to see the team that is so vibrant early in the morning. Unfortunately, Dr. Ngubane could not make it due to other commitment, and he requested me as my colleague to come and represent him. The fallen heroes such as Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Ahmad Kathrada, believed in an ideal of equal, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. While South Africa has undergone significant social change in the past 2 decades, the ideal of creating a nation where all South Africans will enjoy better quality of life continues to be a dream for our beautiful country, particularly at a time when South Africa have seen a credit downgrade, water restrictions, food shortages, increase in price due to drought, and weakening of the rand. All this has played a havoc with our community, our behavior, and also affected our lifestyles. Individuals and small and medium enterprise in particular grapple with such repercussions. The government robust plan to enhance economic and social transformation is in the process of implementation. The plan promotes growth development to eradicate unemployment, poverty, and equality. It aims to increase the infrastructure investment, aim at massively improve social and economic infrastructure with the emphasis on the use of the local content and the local companies. Also to give the effect to the National Development Plan, the New Growth Plan, the Industrial Policy Action Plan, with the aim of stimulating growth, employment, and the reindustrialization of the South African economy. It also tends to transform the mining sector with the aim of widening the benefits of South African abundant mineral resources, including the creation of the safe and the decent work on the mines, the benefits for near-mine local communities, as well as giving the particular focus to the mineral beneficiation. It also promotes youth employment, small business, and cooperatives. It also builds a developmental state with the technical and political capacity to lead the development and transform the economy. And lastly, it tends to maintain and support the macroeconomic policy framework oriented towards reconstruction, growth, development, informed by imperatives of sustainability and a long-run macroeconomic stability. As leaders of the corporate enterprise, and in particular state-owned companies, we can make a significant difference in South Africa through collaboration and alignment with this plan. It is more important now than ever that corporate enterprise continue to make a difference. With the state of economy, the time it is right now for partnership, be it public and private or private-public or SOEs partnership. Our endeavor must talk to sustainability, ultimately making the recipients of our initiative self-sufficient. For many years, Eskom has been involved in stimulating the small and medium enterprise sector, particularly black-owned, women-owned, and the youth-owned companies, through the creation of opportunities for entrepreneurs to become Eskom suppliers or contractors. The Eskom Development Foundation is responsible for coordinating and executing of Eskom corporate social investment strategy in support of ESCOM business imperatives. This strategy supports the socio-economic development program by targeting primarily the communities where ESCOM operates. To this end, we have a number of flagship and national programs that address specific development needs, which include enterprise development in the economic sector, education, healthcare, energy, and environmental rural school infrastructure development, as well as welfare and the social sector. One of the enterprise development flagship programs that we do have is the annual ESCOM Business Investment Competition, which was launched in 2009. It's aimed to recognize, reward, and inspire small business and significantly contribute to fight against unemployment and poverty. The Business Investment Competition rewards outstanding work in entrepreneurship while encouraging small and medium enterprise to prosper as they spearhead the country's economic development. Another initiative by ESCOM Foundation is Simama Ranta. That's a school entrepreneurship education competition which is aimed at identifying and acknowledging South African secondary schools, of which 3,500 of them do participate, that lead the way in entrepreneurship education. The foundation believes that one of the best ways to cap underdevelopment in communities is to teach the youth of South Africa at the school level that entrepreneurship has to be considered as a viable career choice. The third one is the ESCOM Contractor Academy, which is a training that emerging contractors and suppliers on fundamental skills over 8 months period. This is supported by the government initiative to create jobs, develop skills, and alleviate poverty. Students are trained, among other things, in finance, project management, safety, and people management. This we do in partnership with the University of Limpopo. The program is run in all provinces, but the focus area is around ESCOM new built site, such as Kusile Power Station in Mpumalanga. Since 2008, in excess of 1,000 students have graduated from the academy. The program are boosted by strong partnership with various government departments and municipalities. In addition, ESCOM is committed to improving the quality of life in communities in which it operates. We as a state-owned company acknowledge that the government alone cannot eradicate the challenges faced by our people. We have an important role to play, and do other South African enterprises as well. We are encouraged by the many success stories that we have seen through possible. We are encouraged by the many success stories that we have seen and made possible through ESCOM Foundation and others working in the CSI space. We are proud of ESCOM investment and legacy. Together, we can reach out our hand of change to achieve economic transformation. I thank you. The little one, at least somebody is shorter than me.
Thank you, Mr. Khoza. The time has come for our one and only panel conversation today. I'd like to introduce Alon Reyes. He is amongst other things, one of his sins is that we actually do know each other and could be called friends, but not while we're on the panel. So I'm not going to hold back. I promise you, everybody, trust that we are going to have a good go at it. Alon is the founder of Reyes Corp, which is the only profitable business incubator in Africa, and this has been recognized on a number of platforms. He's supporting more than 500 businesses. He's authored a number of books, one of which is Lose the Business Plan, which I completely agree with. What to Do When You Want to Give Up, which I also completely agree with, which is Don't Give Up. And he's going to be talking about a bunch of other things about the big, small business and how to grow your business. But more importantly, he's been recognized as a young global leader. He's by the World Economic Forum. He's been recognized by Forbes, by CNBC, you name it. He's been recognized and been seen all over the place. He has his own TV show, which is called on Business Day TV, around business as well. This is probably the premier enterprise development guru in South Africa right now. I'm really putting him on the spot because then we're going to grill him later. But yeah, welcome, Alon Reyes. Thanks very much. Thanks. You can talk here. You're doing the introduction and then we'll sit.
No, I'm not. No one told me that. You're kidding.
Well, why don't we have a chat? You can sit right at the end there and we'll have a quick chat.
All right, good.
I'm gonna do this quickly. Just you and
All
me
right.
for a second.
Right, good. I'll come closer.
I don't know. It depends on whether. Okay, this is kind of like speed networking for my future business.
Right.
What would it take for me to enter Reyes Corp and become a supported business within Reyes Corp?
So, Tabang, the problem that you have, I think, is that we've adopted some very bad habits from other industries where the idea is that entrepreneurs are either born or made, right? So those are the two juxtapositions. And some people, if you ask anyone in the audience if they are an entrepreneur, they'll say, "Oh, we are born, we're special." If you ask them,
yes, we are. Yes. Okay.
If you ask them, if you ask anyone who's in enterprise development, they'll say, "No, we can make you. Like we put you into a process and we take you, and then we add knowledge, and then you pop out as an entrepreneur." And that's a flawed thinking, in my opinion, from my experience. And so when we entered this space 17 years ago into this space, we were adopting very much a training methodology, which was the raw input is people, we add knowledge, and the output then would be, we'd put them through a new venture creation program, and they'd pop out as entrepreneurs. And most of those programs failed miserably, because we're talking about enterprise development, but we need to be talking about sustainable enterprise development. It's not that they passed the program. It's not that they got a certificate. That really means nothing. And we see it at that post-program, that they go out into the real world and that they failed miserably. So for me, it's about who is going into the program is important. What you're doing in the program is even more important. And ensuring that you are not creating tame lions, that when they go out into the real world, that they can't fend for themselves. So that's when you ask the question around what would it take to get in, I want to understand you. So in Lose the Business Plan, the whole notion of Lose the Business Plan is that the model in the VC market, in the funding market, is that you produce a beautiful document which has got a beautiful J-curve. They all have that same J-curve. Year 1, I need lots and lots of money. Year 2, a bit more. And year 3, I'm going to make lots and lots of money. They all look the same, right? Yet our statistics show that 96% of those businesses will fail. And we still use this thing called a business plan as a deciding factor of whether or not I should take Tabang into my program or not, or if I'm going to fund you, or whether you just meet a certain criteria to come in, so that you are a certain age, so you might tick a couple of boxes in terms of that you can come into our program. Our view is very different. I want to know what's between your ears, not necessarily your IQ, but I'm looking for your characteristic as an entrepreneur. Are you teachable? Are you flexible? Please God, you've got father issues. And an overdoting mother. And we look for all these 17 characteristics in terms of bringing you through. So you would apply, you would come in, you would write an expression of interest, we'd interview you, a one-on-one interview, you'd write a 2.5-hour test, have a second interview, do a DD, and finally do a very scary panel right at the end with 3 very scary, even more scary than you kind of people looking to see if they can understand you better. So you see this old Dragon's Den and all that? We were doing that 17 years ago. And 1 in 20 of those people gets into the program. And we still get it wrong. Like, it's not like that's a perfect system. 17 years of finessing and finessing and finessing, and we're still not getting it like perfect. It's still we're learning, every single week we're learning. So that's what it would take for you to get in, is that you'd have to be the right individual.
So would I be rejected if I told you that I've had 6 failures and 1 success?
You would come to the front of the queue. Okay. Yeah, that whole thing.
And why is that? I mean, let's have that conversation.
Because you've got cultural issues within South African, and you know, in your introduction to me, you spoke about the World Economic Forum. I met a Professor Diane Francis. There was a Canadian working in America, and she said the fundamental difference between America and Canada is how they treat failure. The Americans fear failure. Okay. The Canadians shame failure. Okay? And the Commonwealth is very much a shame-based society versus fear-based society. So I don't want to fail. I fear it. But in a society where you're going, shame, man. Okay? And shame is a big part of our cultural understanding of how we deal with failure, or shame. People in a shame-based society don't have what they call a re-entry into the entrepreneurial fray. South Africa has just over 1 times re-entry back as after failure. So statistically, you would only fail one time in South Africa. You wouldn't come back. Whereas in America, you'd fail 3.5 times and still come back. And we have to change the way that society views failure, that it is your teacher. It is a thing that provides you with the knowledge to move forward. So I would definitely put you at the front of the queue, not just because you're a friend.
No, we don't do nepotism at Race Court.
No.
Okay, so I really like that, because the process of going through the first bankruptcy was one of shame, deep shame. I actually ran away and hid for a few weeks before I even emerged to look for a job. It was only because I was hungry. And that's the truth. That's the reality. And it was forced. So it's a very interesting thing. I probably haven't gotten over it yet, which is.
And you shouldn't get over it. I think it's a good thing, because it keeps that fear. Because if that shame turns to fear, then that's good. It's a propeller. It propels you. It's a propellant in the entrepreneurial space. So you look for those things, because no one likes to fail. It's not like I'm endorsing failure and saying, wow, cool, it's a good thing. It's a horrible thing to happen. I've been through it myself.
Yeah.
But it does keep me going when my back's up against the wall.
And so when we talk about failure, what would you say to the statement, because you hear it a lot, the statement being bandied around, fail fast and fail forward. How do you view that as a kind of philosophy?
Yeah, I think so. At the top level, I'd agree. But I think there's a couple of things, particularly in today with the millennials, that is, I think, things to watch out for. We are now, the new kind of view is that things need to flow, like it needs to be schwal, and like it needs to flow. And so if it's hard, it's not flowing, you know? And so I see a lot of the youth going Control-Alt-Delete. So they come up against a problem. It feels like they're pushing. It feels like they're failing. And their way out is to say, well, it's not flowing, therefore it's not right, and I need to find another path. And I find, particularly amongst young entrepreneurs, there's 2-year stints where you see them very much like bouncers in CVs, that I started this, And what happened now? And what happened with this? Now my partner screwed me over. And what happened with this? And there's always an excuse. Here, I don't like those kind of, to deal with those entrepreneurs. So if it's around the fact that they keep failing because they keep giving up, that talks to character. It doesn't talk to the context. And it's very important that you don't mix the two up.
So that's the ingredient that you're looking for, is a type of character that is resilient, that has grit, that has perseverance. What are some of the other characteristics out of the 17 that are different from the character or the personality traits, or are you just looking for personality traits in the?
Okay, I'll mention two. So one is internal locus of control. But this is an interesting thing. We have a grading out of 20. If the entrepreneur who applies gets 11 and below, we don't take them in. If they get 17 and above, we also don't. So that's an interesting sweet spot which we learned over the years. So internal versus external locus of control, let's just talk about that. External locus of control means that I believe my fate is predetermined. I have little or no control over my future. I am in my destiny is pre-written. Okay, I'm just an actor in this world. The high locus of control is I control what goes on in my life. I control my future. When you get to somebody who's sitting at 20, their view of the world is they are in complete control of everything that's going on. Now, entrepreneurship, you're going to get sideswiped all the time. And what we found with entrepreneurs with very high internal locus of control, they actually broke. They broke in those moments because it was so out of their frame of reference that they could be out of control that they actually collapsed. And I think the external locus of control is easy to understand, that they were not feeling that they had anything to do with their own future and therefore were less likely to push through moments. So that's one, is the ILC, is that we test. The other one which I mentioned before was father issues. Okay, so this is something I often get asked about around father issues because it's quite a controversial piece. And father issues, there's great research done that if you've got father issues, if you've got an issue with your father, if he's absent either physically or emotionally to you, okay, and you've got an overdoting mother, you're just the absolutely perfect candidate to become an entrepreneur because you spent your life trying to prove, right? Okay. So the way that works, just I don't know how much time we got. So
no, we got a few minutes.
Because I want to talk about bulls now because the way
I feel like I need to lie down on the couch. So yeah, my dad. So he wasn't really. I mean, he was around, but he
didn't understand you. Yeah. So the whole theory around the father issues goes something like this. In the animal kingdom, there's the big bull, and he's, in charge of all sorts of things, right? And then there's these young bulls that go, I want to be in that position. So they come and challenge him. And he's stronger, he's more experienced, and he sorts them out. The following year, they come at him again. Same thing, the third year. And eventually, after 4 or 5 years, or whatever the case may be, the young bull beats the alpha male. And then is now the alpha male, right? So now he's there, but everyone witnessed it. Everyone saw that. So his authority is understood and witnessed. When your father is not there, you are unwitnessed. And so you spend your whole life trying to be witnessed. Now my mentor is a dollar billionaire. His father was also a very successful man. He bought his father out for a lot of money cash. His father turned around to him and said to him, so you've made a bit of money, but you'll never be a trader like me. But when I say he bought his father out cash, and that was his father's response. He's in his 70s now. He has got father issues till the day he dies, and he knows it. And that's what drives him. So even if you know it, you can't take that part of, you can't disengage that code out of your brain. So I look for those individuals because they are very powerful individuals to back. And the question that I've been asked is that it's just men? No, it's not men, it's women. It's women as well. And in a weird way, even more so.
Daddy issues. Yeah, no. Then the question is, do you date them? No, let's not get into that one. that was totally off topic. I think that's a fantastic introduction, because what we really want to do is set the playing field for a broader discussion around enterprise development. I think we far too often gloss over the important characteristics of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and there are a lot of programs, government programs, that are set up for job creation as using enterprise development as that force. And on both sides here, one of the things that I definitely would appeal to from everybody in the room is to consider where you are, whether you're an NGO or whether you're a CSI practitioner. What is it that you can take away from these conversations, especially this one? Because you have to see yourselves as a business. If you're an NGO, you have to see yourselves as a business, and what is it that you need to be doing as a business that will lead to a much more sustainable NGO? Whether that means actually making money to make yourselves sustainable, or finding better ways of marketing yourselves in order to make yourselves more sustainable. So in the meantime, though, we're going to use this as the time to introduce or invite our other panelists. They're floating around somewhere on my piece of paper. Who are you? Excuse me. Hold on. Can I invite Daniel Hatfield, who co-founded Edge Growth, to the stage, along with Tato Kgatlana and Professor Joe Null. But where is Professor Joe Null? Good. You came with a bag as well. Listen, that's even more concerning.
Which academic doesn't?
Welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to the Business and Society Conference. We're talking about enterprise development. You obviously heard the little chat that we were having, so you kind of have the context. I'm going to give you each 3 minutes just to quickly give context to what you do, where you come from, and how you are playing a role in enterprise development from whichever perspective, and then we can start hammering some deep, meaningful questions. I'll start with you, Daniel.
Yeah, so I think that our experience is not too dissimilar to Elon's. I think most have seen Elon at Micah. Maybe go on.
Yeah, Tato, do you want to try?
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Tato Kgatlana. I'm a social entrepreneur. I started a company called Retaka. And basically what we do is we've innovated what we've called the repurposed school bag. So it's a solar-powered backpack made from recycled material. And what happens is while a child walks to school, the solar panel will charge. In the evening, it will then turn into a light to study. So we've taken innovation. Thank you. Thank you. So we've taken innovation and particularly solar technology and made it wearable solar technology, but for people that actually need it the most, kids. And through this business, managed to employ about 20 people, getting into a space of manufacturing as a young black woman, which was unheard of, and grew this company to be able to distribute about 10,000 school bags across the African continent. In the process, managed to get the attention of Bill Gates, who tweeted about us, met him.
That's worth a clap.
And through doing this work, obviously, we've been able to work with quite a lot of corporates because how we actually distribute the bags is corporates purchase from us instead of purchasing a normal bag from China or wherever, but also being able to purchase a bag through which we're able to actually measure impact and partner with corporates in making sure that whatever funding that we receive as a business, we're able to channel it where it matters most. So that's what I do.
Excellent, thank you. We're gonna do some hard questions a little bit later about that as well. So just be prepared, and forgive me as well. Daniel, we're going to skip you just because Prof. Joe Nell, he's been ready for this. What's your academic transcribe here?
Ah, I'm a English Studies graduate, seconded to EduPark, the non-profit company of the University of Limpopo. And my journey, if you like, I love these jargon words. My journey started in about 2008 when I met a gentleman from Eskom. So my story is a bit more prosaic and very practical. Gentleman from Eskom, Nadir van Rensburg, we had a vision, we wanted to train people. Eskom needed to train suppliers to them in certain disciplines. So we thrashed out a very nice curriculum, but there was a fundamental problem. We didn't have funding. At about 4:30 one morning, Nadir met Mrs. Steph Prinsloo from the Eskom Foundation. And they chatted, and Steph said, well, he'd like to fund a pilot. So that kicked off. And since then, we've trained in excess of 1,000 students. It's been an enormously successful program. We think there are lessons to be learned from them, but having spent the past day and a half here, obviously we have to learn a great many more lessons, despite the success of our story. We've graduated approximately 40% youth, approximately 50% females. However, the interesting part of the story is when it comes to the winners, and we're represented in every province, as Mr. Khoza mentioned, when it comes to the winners in the various provinces, I say about 80% were women. Now, this isn't that tough. Yeah, I think that deserves a hand. This isn't a tough, previously male-dominated industry. So I think it's a brilliant reflection of potential that can be developed, nurtured, and applied. And it's not simply a good story that's feel good, it's a fact.
So we'll get into it, but thank you. And Daniel.
Am I live now? Can you hear me? So I was one of those guys with daddy issues, and I managed to surround myself with a couple of other people with daddy issues, and we were all coming back to South Africa, having had overseas corporate jobs, pretty much at the time around sort of 94, 96, etc., where everyone was going in the other direction. And we were coming back just because of how we felt about South Africa. And so, although we were still in corporate jobs, we were really passionate about job creation. And we all came from families that had entrepreneurial backgrounds. And in wrestling with how we could make a difference, we realized that the thing which resonated with all of us was working in small business and with small businesses. And so, over the course of a couple of years, as our weekend jobs, we used to go out and we used to try and help small businesses, and we used to find all these constraints and all these issues that Alan was raising earlier. And over time, we kind of realized that sitting on the fence was not really going to allow us to actually be helpful in this space. And so pretty much at the time that we decided to make the break, the Enterprise and Supply Development Code was promulgated. So in some ways, I guess, right place at the right time. I think Alon was probably the only person at the time who'd actually been in the space for longer. And we just realized there was a great need for someone to bridge the gap between corporates who are trying to make a difference in small businesses and the small businesses that were struggling with access to market, access to finance, access to skills. So that was almost the foundation of Edge as a business, but certainly the underlying intent of the business is we believe that the most powerful way of actually making a difference in South Africa is through growing small businesses to create jobs. So in everything we do, that's the focus of and the lens that we look at the problem through.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so you know what, we're gonna get into it, and I think it was a perfect opportunity here with Daniel talking about access and specifically around markets, finance, and skills. What I do want to do is make sure we keep women on the table as well, as a primary conversation, because I think it's topical and based on what Umama Grasser-Machel said yesterday, is even more important as well. So let's just talk about markets, and I'm going to start with you, Tato, because you've had when you first started, did you have access to markets? What was your route in to sell your product, to reach the end consumer, and how was that received?
So I started the business when I was 18, which is the easy part. And going into university, making sure that...
Oh yeah, it's always easy at 18.
Yeah, I think you're a bit more fearless. But I think what was important for me going into the journey of starting a business was to understand what's the most effective way to raise capital. One, two, while not losing equity. Especially as you have innovative ideas, you need to have flexibility to keep on innovating until you get to a point where you can scale. And at that point, if you've got, partners on board that might not necessarily agree with the direction in which your innovation is going, that makes it harder. So what then happened was understood what's the most effective way of raising capital. For me at the time, it was through business competitions, and which was a bit unheard of, because it's like, why go the business competition route when you can ask friends and family, when you can go to, I don't know, venture capitalists if you want. And so for me, what was important was that we weren't only just looking for capital, but we're looking for access to markets. What do I mean? When we won a business competition, that gave us access to PR. Also, whoever was judging the panelists usually was a high-profile director. So really making it practical to raise funds. And through doing this, we managed to raise about R500,000. This is in a space of about 8 months. So we're talking about high performance as an entrepreneur, but more particularly making it focused so that you do have access to those markets. And through that process, we didn't just raise R500,000 to put obviously into machinery and that kind of thing, but also we were securing orders. So for example, you've got a lot of partners here today. If there was a business competition running, that would automatically give us visibility to MTN Foundation, Vodacom Foundation. And so after that, what you looked at was a business that didn't just raise capital, but at the same time was also coming up with a pipeline of orders. And that's what we've done. And to this day, everything that we do, we make sure that you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So yes, I'm here, I'm a panelist, I'm speaking, but I've made sure that the business is also covered, in that every conference bag in the room, we manufactured it. So you have to start thinking of access to markets as more than just, going and sending an email or knocking on doors, or trying to get CSI managers, for example, to purchase school bags, but finding innovative ways of getting that access.
So, thank you. And so how much are you going to pay us for that punt? Because I think you owe me some money right now. We will consider that advertising space as free for now, and then if you get any orders, we'll take a little cut. Try it out. You're in there, Nick. Nick's already marking it down, saying commission-based. This is the enterprise development session, guys. So when we're talking commission, it's part of driving business. And like a true entrepreneur, you went in with multiple answers to the market's question, I guess, and entrepreneurs will do that. In terms of shifting that to edge growth and some of the businesses that you've supported, how have you found specifically access to markets? It's a huge challenge, but how have you tried to overcome that?
I'll go as far as to say that for the average entrepreneur, it's the biggest challenge facing them in South Africa right now, particularly with this massive drive around enterprise supply development. In many ways, the easier things to get access to is the capability building, skills development, training, etc. And actually, funding, if you're a reasonable entrepreneur in this market, is also not as hard to come by as I think most people expect before they actually start approaching. So for us, in many ways, this new change to supply development and the codes has created this perception that access to market is going to become easy. So suddenly now it seems simple. You become part of a corporate program. You are going to get the training that you had hoped for. There's going to be money there, and then you're going to get introduced to the various people who buy your product, and it's going to be that easy. The reality is that it doesn't work that way. I mean, corporate supply chains are set up in a way, so if you're a B2B business, corporate supply chains are set up in a way that in many respects they can't be prejudiced by an internal program being run, and actually you almost have another hurdle to overcome, where if you're in a program, seemingly you're not as deserving as someone who is coming from the outside. So what we've done is, first of all, in these programs from the outset, it's really important that the people who are actually bringing them onto the program almost adopt that business, almost adopt that as the supplier adopts them in the process. Otherwise, later on when you've now developed this business is now expecting a contract and you kind of introduce them. We've just found that on both sides there is a sense of disillusionment. You know, the entrepreneur now says, well, I've spent all this money scaling up, I'm ready to actually provide more goods and services, and there's no contract waiting for me. It's a bit this kind of tamed lion type thing. You actually haven't necessarily given the opportunity to set them free. And at the same time, on the flip side, the person buying the product or the service hasn't been on the journey and understood why this business is effectively well set up to deliver what they're looking for at the requirements and at the cost specs. So really, you know, it's actually a change management process. And if you don't get the buyers involved from the get-go, the end users, I'm not talking the procurement department now, I'm actually talking about the person who uses that end service. From the get-go, we find that this whole supply development and access to market is a misnomer. And then I think beyond the actual supply chain, I mean, Alan would be a good person to speak to that, but it's the same thing. If you set the expectation that just go through these training courses and you will be ready to build a market, it's the wrong expectation. They still need the ability to hunt in the real world, and actually often just having the single supplier from that corporate who provides the program is setting up for failure, because then they don't have the ability to sell in the normal market, and they've obviously got very concentrated supply.
Which is a great point to shift to Prof on exactly that question around. So you did a lot of the training, but how did the training allow for people to get out there and actually hunt for business? Did they do it? Did they do it successfully? And what was your feedback from that?
I think it's this reply, I hope, dovetails completely with Daniel's, because what we found in the training was that in the initial briefing, then I make the following point to the students, that they cannot expect contracts from Eskom. They're being trained, but they cannot expect contracts. Then I also point out to them that I pray to God that they don't get any, because then they're limiting their vision. We have people right now supplying in Kazakhstan, in Azerbaijan, in the United Arab Emirates. So and Britain and the US, why should our students limit themselves to a very, well, in global terms, small entity, and then to the geographical region called South Africa? That's the one point I make to them. Then what we find is this amazing tenacity amongst our students. You know that in empirical studies that we've done, where we could trace the contracts awarded in terms of the vendor numbers, Eskom vendor numbers, our students were awarded 680 contracts to the value of 2.2 million would be quite nice. It's actually 2.2 billion rand. So that is, yeah.
Sure.
I think empirically proven one of the best programs in South Africa. So what do we do to assist? Our facilitators are there to mentor the students even after the program. We think we've got the best guys in South Africa, by the way, teaching program management, teaching supply chain management, human resources, and so on. business enterprise, business sustainability. So we don't set out in the program to develop the access to markets. I don't particularly think it's a weakness, because the markets are variable, and we've seen our students change their focus during the program. They'd go from, let's say, guest house managers, guest house owners, and then diverge into the construction business. So we see this growth throughout the process. It's an 8-month program, so we see how they change, the behavioral change, the thought processes that develop. But I think the facts speak for themselves. One lady went from 8 employees to 800. Huge growth in numbers. So somewhere we are doing something right. What it is, I've yet to ascertain. This program is now the focus of at least 3 business studies. I've read 2 papers at business conferences.
So let's ask you about the data there. So in the majority, 96% of businesses won't make it through their third or their fifth year? 10 years. How long has the program been going for?
Since 2008.
So you've been going for about 9 years, trained 1,000 students. How many of those businesses still exist today?
We've done follow-up investigations. And as I said, the original businesses have changed. So we find that at least 50% are still in business. But again, the guys have realigned themselves. They've also formed consortia, which is exactly what we're aiming at, to see another huge consortium coming into play.
Okay, so 50% is a pretty good number. Obviously, that's distributed over the last 8 years. So we'd test that. I think there's probably a need to try and establish how much revenue that's putting back into South African GDP. That would be an interesting number, which I'm quite sure, Alon, you well aware of in terms of the businesses that you support. How important is the finance aspect in the nature of your business as an incubator?
Sure. Controversial. I'll give you an unexpected answer. So I think the issue on money is a very loaded, emotive subject. And in order to respond, many people, entrepreneurs will say that they require money. My experience is that by far the majority don't need money. They first need a compelling economic right to exist. Once they have a compelling economic right to exist, they will then be able to, and being compelling, they will compel financiers, friends, family, fools, others to then invest in them. It becomes easier and easier, or it's easier to invest in a business with a compelling economic right to exist. So that's where I start off with. So we test the thing and say, oh, everyone needs money. They don't need money. Second of all, there is more money chasing good business than there is good business chasing money. There isn't a week that goes by that a VC, some international fund is contacting us. Can we have access to your entrepreneurs, your entrepreneurs, your entrepreneurs? They are looking for people to invest in. They can't find the people in their search that are investable. So we have to say that. You have to make that comment, because it's an important comment to say in a context where everyone's saying, all I need is money.
So let's drill down into that. What is a good business? What makes a good business?
A business that has something to sell, somebody who will buy it at a profit, and that's it. Something to sell, and very often they don't know what they're selling. Somebody to sell it to, in other words, a market who is willing to buy it at a profit. Okay, and not because very often in all these tender opportunities and these supply opportunities, there's 5%. Yesterday I was with a business, they were locked down to a 5% margin. Like, you can't operate. Basically what happened, a big corporate had outsourced that as part of their supply development. They locked down the 5% margin and said, okay, we de-risk, you do that exclusively, and we allow you a 5% margin. That's not enterprise development. That's not supply development. That's something else, right? That's a scam, in my opinion. But that's what's going on. So it's also important how you fund. I think funding is important how you fund. So we see entrepreneurs who get big sums of money up front, and we've watched them implode because of that money. So my view is that you drip the money in, and only once you've set the two levels that you have to set right, the business model is very often broken. The model is broken in the sense that all their costing is based on a small business that doesn't scale well. So what I mean by that is that the salaries are my cousin who can't get a job. You know that cousin who can't get a job? She'll work for next to nothing. So she's in my cost center right now. I'm working from home or a rented garage from my uncle, right? As soon as I scale, then I'm paying proper rental, proper salaries, etc., and then the business doesn't work anymore. So what happens is those businesses attract funding, and those businesses implode after they get the funding because the structure is not right. So the first thing you have to do is get the structure of the business right. The second is to get the mindset right, the paradigm right, that I deserve success. I can handle scale. I can handle being a manager, being a leader. All these entrepreneurs it's the first time, and same for me, first time that when your business is 10 people big, it's the biggest business you've ever run. Then it's 11, and it's the biggest business you've ever run, and so on and so forth. So you have to get those two pieces right before you add the money. So drip in the money in the journey, and then add the money later. And that's how we do it. And when we work with big corporates, that is our relationship with many of them, to say, don't give the money up front, wait.
Thank you. I noticed you nodding, Daniel, and I feel you've got something to say about the funding side, because that's where you entered, and I think you can talk about it both from Edge Growth itself as an enterprise, because it is a business in and of itself, and how you then entered getting funding and how you've used that funding, as well as then the experience of what that means for the businesses that you support.
Yeah, and we fund. So I think that's probably the one segment of the NSD market where we've built sort of the deepest expertise in the countries around funding small businesses. So we manage approximately R1 billion of enterprise and supply development funds. And exactly what Alan's saying is that I can give you some statistics after this. The quickest way to kill a business with a broken business model is to give it funding. It just accelerates the failure. In fact, we've got statistics that show where the business model wasn't fixed and we provided funding, the average revenue growth of those businesses per annum, and this is a sample of 100 businesses that we took, was minus 21%. So basically they went backwards. Okay, not a very good statistic. The businesses where we felt that the business model had been fixed and we backed them as scalable, the average revenue growth was 49% per annum. So a delta of 70% almost between these two different types of businesses. And obviously it's not always that clear as to whether it's the business model is perfect or not, but where you have the ability to critique the business model in a way that you're looking at the business at a scalable version, so without the discounted cousin salary in it, once you're paying full rental, etc. If that business model is fixed and you drip in the money in tranches as and when they need things, that's when you see success. So I think I'm very much just agreeing what Alan has to say about when funding is important. But certainly from the statistics, funding at the right time in the business is key. So we've seen the best success in the businesses where we have provided funding, but at the right time. And then I think that the other thing which we advise entrepreneurs is go as far as you possibly can without raising funding. I mean, if I look at our own personal journey, last year, 9 years into the business, we raised our first official round of funding. Until then, we'd bootstrapped it the whole way. We'd run it on cash flows. The disciplines you create when you have to sell work to pay your salaries, and this is a services business, and obviously the dynamic is different in a product business where you need to buy equipment, etc. But the disciplines you create around cash flow management, etc., when you are bootstrapping your way there and you don't have a slush fund, stand you in good stead when you do get the money, because then you pay particular attention as to where you allocate that resource, and you make damn sure that you put it in the place which is going to basically, explode your growth most exponentially.
I think you just hit exactly what Tato was saying just now, which is you actually saw the angle of using business competitions as marketplaces for your products, and you also saw, and I'm kind of interpreting what you're saying as well, just because I'm not as smart as you, into an opportunity to sell larger volumes to less people, so reducing your cost as well. And you did that at 18. I only worked that out at 39. So that's not good. But
Taking notes.
but that's still good for you. I mean, not yeah. I'm giving you props there. But in that sense, because I really want to bring this to the conversation about women, and in particular, one of the comments yesterday that Umama said was that she referred to young women in particular being one of the most tenacious. You used the word tenacity, but they were the ones at the forefront of really trying to get involved in enterprise, in entrepreneurial pursuits. Have you found that being a young woman in particular has been a help or a hindrance in winning competitions, finding businesses to sell to, et cetera, What is your experience as a young woman?
I think for me, the conversation is never around, my gender. I think, as Alan was explaining, first and foremost, do you have value on the table? Can you put value on the table? And if you can convince people that you do have value on the table, then the conversation never needs to go to whether you're a woman or not. And yes, obviously, you can't kind of leave the conversation at that because of our BE kind of systems, we do get preferential treatment as a young black woman under the age of 30. That does happen, yes. But I think for me, what has been most important as a business owner is building for success, specifically for women, success for women in manufacturing. And so you look at our staff, a total of 20 staff, we've got all of them under the age of 35, all are black, and obviously female. And so that was a conscious decision to say, even in our recruitment process, making sure that from the onset, we are actually giving people an opportunity that deserve the opportunity. So also what we found in working with corporates as part of the enterprise development or supply development is that they want to measure the simple stuff. How many women have you employed? That's not difficult. What's difficult is understanding that whether we have productive individuals in our company. So that then starts saying, as an entrepreneur with a business working with corporates, we need to start watching how we have a balance between what we call a balance between the social part of the business as well as the scalability of the business. So you can't measure impact from the fact that you've employed 20 women. That's easy. What is the quality of the lives of these women? Has it changed? Has it not? If you're looking at the skills development of these women, it's not just, you've hired people, but you've got people that now when they came in, their CV looked a certain way. So for example, anyone that we've ever employed, we've asked for a CV. Yes, it's in a township. Yes, we're working from a factory space. But what we do say is you need to treat the blue-collar environment as if it is a white-collar environment, and that's the only way you will see a difference. And so for me, it's been quite interesting to kind of manage that, but I think, we need to start measuring a lot more than just female or age.
Yeah.